Hello everyone. Today Chuck and I are off to the park, Cheeseman Park specifically, one of my favorite places to stop off here in the neighborhood. I love this park because it has a great history. In Denver's early days, it was a cemetery. And unfortunately, when the decision was made to change it into a park, it incurred some scandal when the contractor who was supposed to be removing the bodies that were not claimed by family, because it was mainly poor residents of the cemetery, he started dividing up bodies to be paid more, and it caused a stall, and eventually then the graves were open for ages and eventually just closed over, and the park was made over the top of the cemetery. So this place has a lot of history, and also in the back it butts up against the Botanic Gardens, another favorite spot of mine. But today I'm going to share with you some thoughts on the upcoming holiday and thought this would be a great place to sit and chat.
Hey there. Alright, Chuck and I are at the park, and I'm only slightly, what do you call that? Not embarrassed. Self-conscious, maybe, about yabbering on at my phone, because I don't normally talk on the phone when I'm out. But, oh, here's Chuck. Let's see. Can you see him? Oh, there he is. Yeah, Chuck is my non-familiar, least magical animal I have ever met. But we are out enjoying the day, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about what I've been hinting at, about finding inspiration in nature. So I think I'll do a little bit more of this video when I get home, because Litha or Midsummer is an interesting holiday for me because it doesn't have the normal connotations and associations. It does, but slightly different. So I'll go over that when I get home. But my point with the park chat is taking a look around for inspiration of what do I want to use. And there's a bee right next to my hand. Okay, bee. I'm kind of nervous. Okay. Taking a look around at what's available. What are the signs of the season, basically? So, here in Denver, I just got back like last week. The initial spring flurry, the first flowers are already gone. So this time of year is not when I think of flowers. The ones that are here in the park have just recently been put out and planted, so they're gonna find their full glory a little bit later in the season. The fountains, as you saw, were not on yet. I'll have to come back when they are on, because it's been cold season and it's been frost season until basically just this past week. And that shows here. But the lilacs are gone. There's lavender, lots of lavender out and about. But the things that caught my attention most on my walk were dandelions, clover, bees, lots of bees, and just yellow and orange, which makes sense, right, for the holiday. So I am going to stew over those things and see how I can use them for the holiday. Hey there everyone, finally back in Denver. I'm quite happy about that. At the beginning of this video I showed you a little bit of my local park, which is one of my absolute favorite places to be. It's very close for me and very soothing. And I hinted at having some issues with the upcoming holiday, with Litha or Midsummer. And I find it very funny that today I was on Instagram and I saw someone was working on their Wheel of the Year. And actually I have been off and on working on that myself. I haven't come to a Wheel of the Year representation that I really mesh with, that I really like and want to like put down in stone in my Book of Shadows. And here's the reason why. So this is my issue that I'm having with the holiday. The Norse tradition, the Asatru tradition, is a bit different from what most of us know and love from the Wiccan traditions. The further south you go to about the Mediterranean, the more variety there is in season and meaning, and just the ability to see the changes in the seasons. Further north, and I'm thinking far north, because you have the Celtic tradition, which has everything like, you know, Mabon, Beltane, etc., the equinoxes. The far northern reaches don't really seem to have that. I mean, my text I'm using for my tradition leaves out Mabon completely, and yet it has something for the spring equinox. It has Easter or Ostra, and I thought that to me felt very imbalanced. And I thought, why would you have one equinox and not the other? And so as I've been trying to figure this out, I've heard different variations of reasons and explanations for why. And I mentioned in my blog post, which I will link below, that Hexe Claire, I get her newsletter. She's a German witch, very well known, got lots of books out, and I love her videos on reading the scat cards, Lenormand, etc. But in her latest newsletter, she made that same observation, that the northern traditions are a bit different. And specifically in my case, the northern tradition has a sun goddess. So at this time of year we're celebrating a goddess rather than a god, which makes for additional complications in my ritual setup. And when I looked for, again, because I am a researcher, that's what I do, it's the actual action part that I fall flat on, but I was looking at the Farrars, a Witch's Bible. That is my go-to resource for background, because they have already done the research. They've done so much background information that they include in that book. I love it. They say the same thing, that in the far north there really isn't a big distinction between the quarters, and the equinoxes originally, according to them, were not even celebrated in some traditions because of that. And it is true that the northern tradition that I follow really has just winter and a little bit of summer, and that's it. Those are the seasons, winter and summer. And on the one hand, that works out really well for me here in Denver, because I feel like that is my life. Winter for 6 months, from October through May, and then a very short summer. You have spring squished in there, but kind of shoved aside. Spring lasts, I swear, it's like a week here. It does not last. Same with fall. Fall is a little bit longer, but still, depending on the year, it could go straight into winter with the snow again. So hopefully this ramble made some sort of odd sense, but my point is, not only do I have a sun goddess that I've got to work with for this holiday, but I also have the feeling that my Wheel of the Year is a bit imbalanced. And I don't think that is because of the tradition itself. I think that's because I know and love much of the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, and I'm trying to kind of impose one on top of the other, and they don't really match. And I've seen that with other people who follow this tradition. I've seen other layouts. I have a printout from the internet from I don't know how many years ago that listed the Norse holidays. They did the same thing. They basically took the Wiccan holidays and put Norse names to them, which does not jive very well. So what I'm doing at the moment is trying to figure out my personal wheel of the year. And, you know, I observed a bit last year. I'm trying to do the same this year and just kind of work out the kinks and figure out how I personally want to celebrate and what aspects of the different traditions I want to add in. I'm not going to say I won't add them in, because I do believe very vehemently that as cultures mix, as people mix, as ideas mix, they evolve, they mesh, they begin to merge in a way where you can't really tell the distinction between where one ends and the other starts. And I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as evolution. So my trying to find my own wheel of the year is kind of my nod to the evolutionary process of religion and spirituality. So my final notes are, I mentioned the things that stood out to me on my walk of the season. What are the signs of the season for me? Then I came home, I did some more research, and I thought, what is it that this holiday really is celebrating? What are we looking at anyway? In one respect, it's the life cycle of the god. He's now at, for those who celebrate a male sun deity, he's now at the apex of his strength and his virility, his just being. He is the brightest at this time of year. And I like how the Farrars also point out that even though there is a, you know, one extreme, we have to also acknowledge what comes before and after, meaning that even though on this day, the solstice coming up, he's going to be his strongest, this is also marking the time when things start to wane again and we look toward the latter half of the year. So we're looking at both of those concepts. The other thing, so what I noticed during my walk were things like colors, plant life, but not initial budding plant life. It wasn't the first blooms. It was the established, growing, kind of work plants, if that makes any sense. These are the durable plants, not the little fleeting fancy flowers that we have at spring. So I want to add that into my holiday. And I think the way that I'm going to do that is mainly through colors and associations. I'm going to be putting together an incense. I'm looking over there because I set up all of my herbs and things. And that's based on a suggestion from Hexaclair's newsletter. And I'm going to have to change basically everything because I didn't have the ingredients that she suggested. But I will make a separate video on that for you. So I'm going to incorporate the season as I know it through colors on my altar, through incense and other props that I use during the ritual and on my altar. I posted on Instagram an updated picture of my altar. I just swapped it out and cleaned it, and you hopefully will notice that the scarf on the altar I've swapped to a green and gold scarf, which for me it's a deep green, and a gold is very indicative of the season. I also have a small grid with quartz and citrine, and I have my citrine point, what do you call that? the pillar point, I lost my words. But that for me, again, it's abundance, it's the gold of the season, of the sun and growth. So I have all of those laid out for that purpose. Let me see if I have any last notes for you here. I don't want the video to get too lengthy. I think that's it. All right, so I am still working on changing up my ritual. Oh, that's the other thing. So the ritual I have from my books is very bare bones. It really doesn't explain anything. There's no background to it, and it's just a recognition of the gods and goddesses, which I find that interesting. This particular celebration in my books does not focus on any particular god or goddess, other than mentioning at the beginning Suna, the sun goddess, is at her strongest right now. That's like a little blip, and then it goes into this long thing recognizing multiple gods and goddesses for the gifts that they give to us. And I find that significant. I find that a good way of looking at the various aspects of deity, each of those gods and goddesses as a facet of deity, and kind of like this diamond aura to it. And I don't know if that makes any sense because I haven't completely figured it out for myself, but that is the theme that I'm going to work with when altering my ritual, and hopefully I will get the completed ritual up and available to view on the blog before the holiday. I can't guarantee that part. You guys have realized how slow I am by this point, but that's the ultimate goal. All right, so that is my observation for Litha/Midsummer and celebrating the Wheel of the Year. And I will be back soon with a couple other videos. I'm in a productive mood, so wish me luck. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.